Alright, this lesson has two objectives. The first one is to practice doing a flipped style lesson. So everything I write down, I want you to be doing in your notes as well. And then the other objective is to actually cover lesson 2.1. And that's so that in the end you should be able to read and write decimal numbers in tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and ten-thousandths. So let's look at our first page here, and this is our place value chart. And we've been looking at place value charts, but we've been focusing all on the numbers to the left of our decimal point. Those are our whole numbers. Now everything to the right of our decimal point, those are decimals, and those are parts of a whole. And again, we're going to focus on our tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and ten-thousandths. We could focus and continue on hundred thousandths, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions, billions, and so forth. But for today's purpose, we're just looking at our four place values: tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and ten-thousandths. So our first example, we have our base 10 blocks, and I've got two of these wholes, so that means I've got two in our ones place, and then I've got 1, 2, 3 of these bars, and these bars are our tenths. So I've got 3 tenths, and then I've got this single hundredth down here because there's 10 of these to make up a tenth, and then there's 100 of them to make up a whole. That's why they're called hundredths. Now if I were to write this in words, this would be 2 and 31 hundredths. And all of our decimals, they end with this THS, and then another key thing is this and this and means that we have a decimal point. So 2 separates from the whole number, and the 31 with the and. So our next example, we've got 3 of these wholes, so 3, and then I've got some kind of decimal back here. I don't have any of my tenths bar, so I'm going to have a 0. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of our hundredths. So to write this in words, this would be 3 and 7 hundredths. Alright, now our next examples, I'm going to, we'll kind of work back and forth, but we aren't going to use our base 10 blocks. So our first example this way is to write 3.24, and to write that into word form and to actually say it correctly, this would be to say we have 3 and 24 hundredths. Well, let's change colors just to make it easier to break up our different examples. And our next one, let's go the opposite direction and say we have 4 and 55. Well, let's go to the thousandths. So we have 4, and then again that and means that we have a decimal, so 4 point, and then 55 thousandths. So here we're going one more place value over to our thousandths. And so if I have 55 thousandths, that means I need to have a 0 in my tenths. So I would say 4 and 55 thousandths, because that 5 goes all the way up to our thousandths place. And our last example would be to say I want to write 14 ten-thousandths. Well, the one difference between this one and the previous ones is that there is no and. That means that there is no whole. So I've got 0 and 14 ten-thousandths. Well, that means we're going even further down our place value chart, and so that means I have 14 ten-thousandths. So that means I have to put my placeholder zeros in my tenths, hundredths, and then I've got 14 ten-thousandths. The next examples are going to be working through your practice workbook. I'm going to work through a variety of problems on the page, and then your homework is actually to finish doing that page. So our first example would be, we have our base 10 block of a whole, but only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the columns or the bars are filled in. So that means I've got 0.9 or 0 and 9/10. And to write that as a fraction, well, that would be 9/10. Our next example would be for number 3, and we have 1, 2 bars that are completely filled in, but this one I only have 1, 2, 3 of the hundredths filled in. So for number 3, we have 0 and this is 23 hundredths. And when I go out to the hundredths place, unlike the previous one where I only went to the tenths, the name of it gives us what our denominator, the bottom number of our fraction, is going to be. So since I say 23 hundredths, I have 100 in my denominator, the bottom number, and our 23 goes in our numerator, or the top number. So let's look at our next example. So for number 5, I'm going to write this as a decimal, and this is expanded form. So I need to combine this. So I've got my 8 that is in my tenths place, and then I have a 1 in my hundredths. So I'm going to combine those two, and I have 0 and 81 hundredths. And to write this as a fraction, since I said 81 hundredths, that means it's out of 100, and my 81 goes in my numerator, the top number. All right, number 7, 65 hundredths. So this would be 0 and 65 hundredths, because I go out to the hundredths place, that second number, and then to write this again as a fraction, it goes out to our hundredths place, so it's out of 100, so 65 in my numerator, the top number. We could reduce this, absolutely, but since the number is 65 hundredths, this would be our equivalent fraction with the decimal. And then number 9, 7 and 22 hundredths. So I've got 7, and that means we have our decimal point, 22 hundredths. So 7.22, 7 and 22 hundredths. Now to write this as a fraction, when I have a whole number, I have to have that be whole, and then I have my fraction, and I say 22 hundredths, so it's still out of 100, and my 22 goes in my numerator. So this would be 7 and 22 hundredths. Again, we could simplify, but since the number is 7 and 22 hundredths, that's how we write it. So for 11 and 13, we're going to write each decimal in expanded form and in word form. So for 11, I have to break up each place value to write it in expanded form. So I've got 4 plus, and then I've got my 1. Well, that 1 is in my tenths place, so that would be 0.1. And then I've got my 9, and that's in my hundredths place, so I've got 0.09, 0 and 9 hundredths, plus in my 6. So I've got 0.006. So that would be our number in expanded form, and then to say it in word form, this would be 4, and this would be 100 96, but since this goes out to, we have our tenths, hundredths, thousandths, I say 196 thousandths. Now for number 13, I do not have a whole number, so to write this in expanded form, I can start with my tenths. So I've got 0.6 plus I don't have any hundredths, so I move to my thousandths. So I've got 0.004, that's my 4 thousandths, and then my 7 is my 10,000th, so I'd have 0.0007. So I've got an expanded form. Now I need to write it in word form. And so I would say this as 6, just like I would if it was a whole number, 6,047. But since the 7 is in my 10,000ths place, that'd be what my final place value label would be. So I have 6,047, but then again, since my 7 is in my 10,000ths, I say that this is 47 ten-thousandths. Now to write this in standard form, this is just like writing it as if you were putting it in numbers. So I've got 7 and 11 hundredths, so 7.11, because my second 1 is in my hundredths place. And then I've got 23 and 6/10ths, so 23, and that's where I say my decimal point goes, 6/10ths, so 6 is in my 10th place. So that's as far as I'm going to go for you guys. So your homework is to now finish our practice workbook, page 6. Let me know if you have any questions.